Hey, it's Kev. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. This is going to be fun. I'm going to share with you a talk that I gave a couple weeks back to my friend Brian Kurtz's mastermind group, Titans Mastermind. Pretty loaded room. Other speakers were Jay Abraham, Perry Marshall. In attendance was Joe Polish, Jim Quick of Quick Learning, John Walker, Jeff's brother. Just a lot of incredible, not only marketers and business leaders, but deep thinkers. David Deutsch was there, Kim Krause-Schwam, Kelly Brown from Stansbury, and Michael Ford, and Mark Ford's son, who's also a copy chief at Stansbury. Just a big-headed room. And so I give you that context because it'll help you understand some of the things you hear in this talk. There's a moment where I tell the story to Jay about what his son said to me in a men's room that I found so shocking once. You'll want to hear that. Jay Abraham, man, what a incredible dude. Just when he walks in the room, first of all, he looks incredible. He's got a ton of style and a way about him that is both friendly and super confident. He just really owns the space around him. So a lot of people I look up to and respect, of course, Brian Kurtz, who has brought all these amazing people together. And my friend Sam Woods was also there speaking. I think Brian had heard him on this podcast talking about AI and realized that Sam was the guy who had the information we all needed about our future and how different it's going to be and already is at the hands of artificial intelligence and machine learning. And so here's the setup. Sam opens the morning with his talk, and there is a sense of excitement, but also panic and doom because a lot of even these high-level business owners were getting their first real download about what's happening with ChatGPT and OpenAI and the many other platforms that are developing seemingly daily and what it's going to mean to their business. You know, just instantly the way we've been doing things and serving our audiences and our customers are different now. And everybody's kind of just trying to comprehend how to adjust to all this. Sam's an incredible teacher, and his talk, everybody just literally sat stunned. And the Q&A had gone on longer than it was meant to. And frankly, we could have stayed on the topic all day and learned from Sam. But it was time for Kevin. I remember I was getting mic'd up by the sound guy, and Kim Krause-Schwam walked over and said, "I'm so sorry you have to follow this." Meaning, like, what are you going to say to this crowd to be at all relevant after what they just heard? This is where I was able to fall back on my comedic instincts a little bit because, as a comic, you're always having to read the room and adjust to the room based on what the person in front of you just did and said. And it was one of those rare opportunities to tap into that ability and try to be effective in a room like this. And so you'll hear what I did. And at the end, there is a Q&A where I left a few of the questions in. Be careful not to reveal anything that Brian would have wanted to keep in the room, but that also offer a little more insight into what I was talking about. I decided almost last minute to talk about story. And I even created a new acronym for the word meaning, because my theme was that if we don't write copy with meaning, then why are we better than AI? Meaning is what we as humans still have to share that the bots can't do yet. And so as far as I'm concerned, that keeps us safe. So here you go. This is me speaking to Brian Kurtz's Titans Mastermind Group in Connecticut. Hope you dig it.
You're listening to Copy Chief Radio. Get all the episodes and join the community at copychief.com.
What I want to do, because I knew our minds would be a little blown from all the AI talk, and it's a little dehumanizing. It's kind of its job to dehumanize. And to Kelly's point, I think, and Sam said it too, we got to get more human. People are going to crave the human connection more than ever, and they're going to want to know when they're talking to humans. And the only way I know for sure to make somebody believe they're speaking with a human is through story. Story with detail that couldn't be made up. It has to connect, and it has to connect back to a lesson, a point, an inspiration. And how many people staying at the hotel here? At the J House? I'm a little afraid for myself with Chat GPT because I cannot work the toilet. You walk in, it opens, which is the first time it's like, hey, how are you? And then you realize if you move at all when you don't need it, hi, please, have a seat. And I'm like, I don't need you right now. But then I did sit down on it, and it's warm. Did you notice that? Yes, man. I've been taking all my Zoom calls in there. I don't want to get off the thing. People are like, are you in the bathroom? I'm like, yeah. You want to see? You won't believe this toilet. All right. So if you don't mind, I'll read you something. Brian mentioned the Sunday emails. And I could just tell you the story, but I want to read it to you the way I wrote it. This will go out Sunday. Hopefully you'll see why I want to read it to you instead of just tell you the story, okay? So bear with me. This is a very true story. Here we go. 3 times in my life, I've packed up everything I could fit into the trunk of an 80s model sedan and relocated thousands of miles from home. Twice towards a place and once away from it. The away was Los Angeles. I'll never forget pointing the hood of my Oldsmobile east and watching that smog pit shrink in my rear view, having no idea where I would end up next. No longer hungry for applause, no new career ambitions, just leaving. A week earlier, I was sitting on a bench at a car wash on Ventura Boulevard when a strange and lovely woman spoke to me. No strangers ever spoke to me in LA. In a city of opportunists, I had, it decided, nothing to offer. So to be engaged by a gregarious stranger at a car wash was like a shot of B12 that I was numb to needing so badly. She was older, eccentric, charming. "Oh, this weather is just gorgeous," she exclaimed. "I just flew back from Chicago, and the sun never came out once." "Chicago," I replied. "I lived there for years. I love that city." "It's lovely, but so drab this time of year," she said. "I was there as a guest on the Oprah Winfrey Show." Showbiz folks instinctively cram their latest relevance into every conversation because the worst thing you can be out there is someone with no resume, which I was. Sizing her up through this new lens of her IMDb, I assumed she might be a psychic or something. She had that vibe. "Oh, cool," I said. Before I could ask the show's topic, she obliged. "She's such a dear." The show was a reunion of TV actors. I played a character called Mrs. Kravitz on a show called Bewitched. I could see it now. "Oh, yeah," I said. "I remember it well. What a great show. Your character was hilarious." "Oh, thank you," she retorted, as if I'd been waiting in line for an autograph. We had great fun making that show. She asked what kind of work I did because the other thing showbiz people do instinctively is find out who they're talking to, just in case. I explained that I'd moved out here hoping for a writing job on a sitcom. My friend Tom had a show on NBC and he wanted me to punch his jokes, but the showrunner wouldn't let me in the room because I had no experience writing TV. The show was canceled after one season, and frankly, now I didn't know what I was doing there. We chatted easily under the shelter of a canopy, waiting for a sweat-drenched worker to wave a blue towel indicating your car is ready. Tips are appreciated. Mrs. Kravitz, true to her character, had somehow learned my entire life story in the space of 5 minutes. The real-life Sandra Gould's matronly tone and sympathetic eyes felt like aloe salve on my weather-beaten soul. Before we parted, she shared advice that changed my life the very second I heard it. "I'm happy to give you my agent's card and set up a meeting if you'd find that helpful," she said. I didn't, and she could sense it. "But I feel like you're searching for something else." I was. So I'll share something my first husband used to say to people who were unsure about their direction in life. He would tell them, "Sometimes to figure out what you want, you have to start with what you don't want and go from there." She hugged me, wished me the best, tipped generously, and drove away. I knew instantly that my time in Los Angeles was over. I got in my car and turned the engine. The cassette player clicked on James Taylor's Mudslide Slim in the Blue Horizon, cued serendipitously to track number 7, "Hey Mister, That's Me," up on the jukebox. The second verse cementing Sandra's timely words. "Let the doctors and the lawyers do as much as they can. Let the springtime begin. Let the boy become a man. I have wasted too much time just to sing you this sad song. I've done been this lonesome picker a little too long." A week later, my truck packed once again, this time with less than I came with. I headed away into the blue horizon with nowhere to be. Wow. That's it. Thank you. So you'll notice there's no call to action, no other purpose for this piece of writing but to bring the reader somewhere with me and share what I hope is a relevant story to them about a time in my life where I didn't know what to do next. And so without saying, "Hey, I've been there. Hey, I'm scared and confused too," they know where I am now. They know the punchline. It's empathy, right? It's connection. By the way, 20 years or so later, I was having lunch with my family. My friend Billy Gardell's an actor. He was on a show called Mike and Molly. Great guy, my best friend in the world. And he's one of those guys that always buys the meal. And so I had to pretend to go to the bathroom and hit up the waiter and give him the card and do that whole bit. And so I got him and got to buy him and his family lunch, which was a feat. But anyway, and then I noticed that was the car wash across the street where that had happened. And I took this picture because I was so broke and destitute and lost, it struck me that only 2 decades later, I could be fighting Billy for the bill, So stories, they're what we remember. They're what we relate to. They're what we react to. They're what we retell. Any Elvis fans here? A few, yeah? What was the first year, Elvis, of his first performance? Do you know?
He didn't go on the road.
No, not just his first ever performance.
54. 54.
Yeah. Pretty good, yeah. And his first contract with RCA? Yeah. What year did Elvis die?
76.
Where did Elvis die? Had he had this toilet, right? Yeah, no. Every single person in here knows where Elvis died, but they don't know the facts, because why? Facts don't stick, stories stick. The story of Elvis dying on the toilet is not something you forget. You're forced to picture it. Could have looked a little like that. But, it's sad. It was a sad, but it's shocking. It's not the way you just don't think someone like Elvis will ever not be with us, and then all of a sudden he dies in this strange and slightly comical way. So stories are everything. Can I read you one more? I'm not harassing you with this, am I? All right, this one is going to be, you're going to love this one, because these names have come up a lot over the last couple of days. Now, for this one, there will be a quiz. So prepare to win prizes. This is shit. Write it again. It was John's very first day working under Gary. He'd accepted Gary's invitation to give up his current clients and spend a year living in LA to become his apprentice. John had quickly established himself as a hot hand on the copy scene and had no problem landing projects with major publishers. Yet he was restless. A nagging sense of imposter syndrome aided his confidence. Maybe he'd been lucky. What if the luck ran out? He knew he didn't truly understand the secret to writing sales copy that almost couldn't fail. The chance to soak up Gary's wisdom by witnessing firsthand how he went about planning and executing his brilliant ideas into sizzling, impossible to resist copy was an opportunity of a lifetime. So John packed up his life and headed to LA. There were no big hugs or formalities when John arrived, weary from the drive, at Gary's small office on Sunset Boulevard. Gary handed John the details of an offer he'd been hired to write the sales letter for, pointed to an empty room across the hall with blank walls and a scorched coffee pot, and said, "Bring it to me when it's done." John whipped up a draft he felt pretty good about and brought it to Gary. Shit was the only feedback Gary offered before instructing him to start over. John was miffed but determined. Each new draft was met with a similar terse reaction from Gary. Boring, nothing unique, nobody cares about that part, cut it, and so on. Over the course of 16 drafts, all rejected outright, John's nervousness turned to embarrassment, then anger, and finally indignation, until on the 17th try, Gary said, "There you go, let's eat." Over the next several years, John and Gary would revolutionize the copywriting industry. John Carlton was the perfect Sundance Kid to Gary Halbert's Butch Cassidy, and together they put on modern-day business versions of stripped-down cabaret shows, shocking the attendees with raw humor, no-holds hot seat sessions, a term they invented, and charging outrageous fees for the experience. A model still used but typically neutered with politeness today. People often ask, how do I find a good mentor? You don't find a mentor, they appear. You'll know they're the one when you'll stop at nothing and give up much to learn from them. The better question is, how do I become a good mentee? True mentorship is a lot of work for the mentor and 10 times as much for the mentee. You must be willing to abandon ego, sacrifice status, and internalize frustration for the relationship to work. And there's no guarantee that it will work. So you'll need to trust yourself as much as you do your mentor. Tricky stuff, but worth every bit. I chose John as my mentor long before he'd ever heard my name, obsessing over any scrap of his teaching I could get my hands on and devouring his lessons until they were part of my DNA. So when we finally met, I felt like I'd known him for years. I like to think that he recognized in me something similar to the things Gary had seen in him. Raw talent, sure, but above all, an eagerness to learn and willingness to show up wherever he asked me to be, regardless of personal sacrifice. John's wisdom gleaned as much, maybe more, by observing him, as much as his sage advice and instruction has been one of the greatest gifts in my life. A mentor is the guide. It's you who has to show up and drive. That's it. Thank you. You don't have to play. Now, again, same kind of thing, but they're a little more direct towards the end, right? We're talking directly about mentorship. I could have left it at the story and not talked about mentorship directly, but again, I'm planting seeds and helping people understand what it takes to have a good mentor. Here's the quiz. Ready? What stuck with you about the John and Gary story? Where was Gary's office located? Sunset. So, name the place. Be specific. That's what people hold on to, and they can see it. How long had John been working with Gary in the beginning of the story?
Right away.
One day. Day one. Where did John write the draft?
In the empty room with the burned coffee pot.
Scorched coffee part. You know why you remember it? You could smell it.
You don't mess with my coffee.
How many drafts did he write?
18.
On the 17th try. What kind of relationship did John and Gary have? Like?
No, Sundance.
Thank you. What common industry term did they invent?
Hot seat.
How much do you remember from Sam's stupid talk?
Sam wrote those two. Before you wrote them, yeah.
I wouldn't say that to the real Sam.
Right.
This bot I'm not afraid of. And so I love that we went back to back because, like Kelly said, like you guys are thinking, like Susan said, oh, yeah, how fast until we quit being human? I love that Perry showed the Wall-E clip. I think about that clip all the time. That part of that movie 10 years ago, sitting in the theater with my kids, that stuck with me. I said, holy crap, this is the future. This is exactly what's going to happen. And when I'm trying to pass somebody in the mall who's doing this shit, you know, people will just walk into a doorway and regardless, no clue that they're blocking traffic or... Oh, and the people at the, God bless you. Do you like music? Do you go to see live music? Can I ask you a favor? I bet nobody in here, don't ever tape the show on your phone, please. And if you see somebody doing it, say something. If you see something, say something. This clown, and I'm behind him and I gotta watch the show through his screen. I can't not look at his screen. He's never gonna rewatch that. What's he gonna do? Poke, yeah, I was here. Show your ticket. Don't ruin the show for people. My God. So we all have this weird relationship with this thing. If you're a parent, oh my goodness. Very mixed emotions about how your kids interact with these. How about the family that takes their kid to the restaurant, sits them in front of an iPad, and it's on full blast? I'm like, if you're gonna melt your kid's brain, at least get him headphones. I gotta hear this. We don't know. We're caught in this. We don't know where this is going, man, but I don't think we're going to want to stop being human too soon. We may have 6 months until the next thing happens. And yeah, the deep fakes and those things. I love what you said. It was clever, Rich, about have a password. Got to have a password with our families now or something. Say the password. Oh, yeah, no, they kidnapped me. That's not the password. You say the password, I ain't sending you shit, so better remember, good luck.
Ask any experienced freelancer and they'll tell you that getting started and landing those first few clients, it's the hardest part. If you're struggling to find consistent work, you want to build more confidence in your skills, or you're just starting out in your freelance journey, don't worry. That's exactly why I created Escape Velocity. It's my step-by-step coaching program for how to kickstart a freelance career, attract quality clients, and confidently deliver great work. Let me help you find and close good gigs so you can quickly launch and grow a successful and sustainable freelance writing business. Learn more at copychief.com/EV. copychief.com/EV. I'll see you there.
So I came up, I love acronyms just because they're convenient, they're fun. And I knew Jim Quick would be here, and he taught me a lot about acronyms. By the way, can I say, Jim, I had the pleasure of working with Jim. Years ago, we wrote some copy together. Do you remember Jim? Of course you do. Were you reluctant to do that I wanted you to do when we were working together?
Around sharing my story?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you believe Jim Quick wasn't sharing his story? Most of you know Jim's story? You probably do if you follow him or if you pay attention to him. You mind me saying just a little bit of it? You've shared it many times. Or Joe, you probably know the story. Do you want to share it?
Boy with the broken brain?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's gonna supply his book too, I think.
I think Jim should share the story.
Yeah.
Come on,
Yeah.
everyone wants to hear it. Seriously.
Just a nutshell, like if you were doing a YouTube short, you know.
So I'm a brain coach, People are always curious how I got started. My inspiration was my desperation. When I was, my parents immigrated here. We grew up in the back of a laundromat that my mother worked at. It wasn't very well supervised because my parents were always working. I had a head injury when I was 5 years old, and because of it, I had learning difficulties. I was put in special education. I had poor focus, memory. It took me 3 years longer to learn how to read. When I was 9 years old, I was slowing down the class, and a teacher pointed to me and said, "That's the boy with the broken brain." And that label kind of became my limit. And so because of all the struggles that I had, I became very passionate about showing people how to have better, brighter brains. And that's what I've been doing for the past 3 decades.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Yeah. It's very personal. It's not easy to remember that a teacher pointed at you at that age and said, "That's the boy with the broken brain." So it's understandable why Jim was reluctant to share these stories, because once you open that up, now everybody knows, and you want to thinking about that. And now look how clean he tells it. So if you're holding something back, I recommend you push to let it out. Most of us don't have this issue, but you have to stay within your comfort level, but don't, I'm telling you, man, it's the human connection. Okay, so meaning. How do we give our copy meaning? A couple things maybe you saw in those ones I read to you. M is memorable. And what I like to think is, the phrase I like to use is, will it make the dinner table? That's what a story does. It makes the dinner table. Everybody sits down with the same people every night, and everybody's heard all the stories, and like, oh, I got something. Did you know that Gary Halbert made John Carlton write 17 on the very first damn day that he worked with them? Does it make the dinner table? Is it engaging? Meaning, is reading it a priority? And that doesn't mean hype. That means urgency, credence. Is it authentic? We hear this word all the time, but do they feel your presence through the words? The greatest thing about copy to me, and the reason that most copywriters I know will never tire of writing copy, is because it's the moment when you're creating it, when you're in the flow, and you realize I'm creating a two-person conversation from one side. So you have to anticipate what the reader's thinking and how they're reacting in the moment that you're writing it. And if you get it right, they're swept away. It's so authentic, it's so engaging that they can't stop reading. Not because of tricks, because of realness. Here's a good one, negotiable. If you challenge them, will they accept your point of view? Have you won enough favor with your reader for them to trust them? Okay, I'll hear you out. They're used to hearing, oh, the way to get a mentor is you gotta offer them value, and you gotta show just keep emailing them, or save up and buy their program. I said, no, that's not what you do. And you don't find one, they appear. And the way to win them over is by you appearing to them and being willing to do whatever it takes. That's a challenging to what they probably already believed, but I had already demonstrated how someone they think of as a copy god put themselves through that with somebody he thought was a copy god. And so everybody's needed a mentor. So who are they? Are they better than John Carlton? That they don't need a mentor? Instinctive. Will they know the action to take after reading? Again, maybe it doesn't even have a CTA. What thought will they have at the end of it, whether you give them a link or not, about what to do next? And then notable, is it worth saving and sharing, which is different than memorable, meaning did you give some value enough for them to want to refer to it again or send it to somebody else? So if you take one picture of a slide, you might be that one. You guys want to know the strangest thing anybody's ever said to me in a men's room? It was Jay's son, Ridge. And he said to me, Kevin Rogers, you're the reason I'm a copywriter. I said, what? How can that possibly be? Your dad is one of the most innovative, influential, impactful leaders of our industry ever.
And I paid him to say that.
And he said, what? I said, didn't you learn copy just around your dad? He said, well, I kind of knew it was something part of his business. He's like, but it was my dad's thing. Wow. He said, but when I heard you on Entrepreneur on Fire talking about what copy is, I was like, that's what I want to do. And that's why I'm a copywriter, which was incredibly flattering. But what it really taught me was 3 things. 2 things I understood immediately, and 1 thing I didn't get for about a decade later. The first one was, teach what you know, and the right people will hear it. Number 2 is stories stick, because that whole interview is stories. And number 3, which I didn't understand until my son was older, Jay, was that no matter how much of a badass you are in your job, to your kid, it's just dad's thing. And so you have to invite other voices into their lives, right? Because other people will say the exact same thing you've either been saying or wanting to say, and they hear it for the first time, and they'll come to you and go, hey, Dad, you know what a copywriter is? So thank you for that. And Ridge is yeah, I could tell you he was very dedicated, and he's a great guy. So what are we, 1 o'clock? We can go past 1 or?
Let's just talk.
Yeah?
Want to chat?
Yeah.
A chief chat?
Yeah, I don't think they need the business stuff. They know how to run a business.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the G?
Oh, yeah, what's the G?
Gangster.
Open loop. G is
Somebody's paying attention.
giving.
Ah.
Did they take a piece of you with them? Could they have only gotten it from you?
I think this was, I planned it this way. Of course, everything is planned if it's good. And the way I planned it was that, I did know after Sam that having Kevin, he was not going to be, I didn't know Sam was going to be that doom and gloom. Just kidding. Where is Sam? Where is he?
Poor guy.
Sam told it like it is, and I'm not, but I knew Kevin would have the upbeat side of what you can still do despite being replaced in everything in your life. And then you did that. You did that beautifully. You did it with, I'm so glad you read those emails, blogs, or whatever. You're going to have an amazing book. I want to be... You want to be mentioned? I want to be, just an acknowledgement. I know Brian, that's all. No pictures. So I have some questions that you guys sent in, but anybody want to comment? I thought that was really direct and really what it means to be a storyteller. Mine are just too long. I can't, I get carried away. So
Do you want to hear some feedback?
Yeah. He's my mentor.
Your stories are great, but I think you struggle to commit to the story. And I know you like to interrupt yourself, and your self-derogation is part of your brand.
Right.
But if I were editing you, I would force you to tell the story and then make your comments or things around that, because it takes people out of the moment.
Okay. I got that. I'm taking that in. I think that...
but clearly you're doing fine.
I'm doing okay. But I will now send... You're going to get my blog
drafts?
every week. Yeah. You can edit them, and then I'll just go to ChatGPT. It'll be just as good as
There
Kevin.
you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
No, that's really good feedback. It's really good feedback. Thank you. Yeah. I'll put Kevin Rogers in the from now from my...
Ask it to act as Kevin Rogers editing your blog.
There you go.
There you go.
That's all you need.
That's all I need. Anybody want... Michael?
I was just going to kind of echo your meaning acronym, and this is probably just kind of a more of a shorthand way to think about it, but the way our kind of guiding light for when we kind of changed the direction of how we wrote copy in 2016 and started trying to be ahead of the puck in terms of where SEC and FTC were heading. We tell our copywriters that we want every customer that launches one of our VSLs to not only feel like their time was well spent, even if they don't buy, but to feel like they are walking away having learned to see something or an issue or understand something in a way that they never have before. That's kind of one of our implicit promises in our copy, is that you're gonna learn something here, that you can go and it's a dinner table story kind of in that part of your acronym. So, and we feel like if we do that, then at the end of the day, the customer is always going to walk away happy, even if they don't buy and they watch one of our promotions.
That's great. And you know what that is? You don't need me to tell you, Michael. It's the long game. That's the long game. You know, I'm sure the people on Jeff's list know everything about Jeff. They know where he lives. They know what he does. They can probably name his dog if he has a dog. It's the long game. If not this product, right? What does Dean Jackson say? There are two kinds of buyers. Right now and not right now.
Right.
It's great, Michael.
Yeah, that's really great. Jeff?
So you're a good performer.
Thank you.
Aside from being a good writer. How do you bridge those two things in your business? Because the writing's a fairly isolated act, at least initially.
Yeah.
And performance, you've got an audience and things, they laugh or they don't, you get immediate feedback. So how do you work with
And Kevin was a comedian in a previous life.
I was going to ask him that afterwards, actually.
Yeah.
Because I thought you did
But he's no
stand-up.
longer a comedian, as you can tell. He wasn't that funny, yeah.
You used to be funny.
I rewrote the toilet stuff, right? It was totally different than I did it last time.
It was.
You got to give me that.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I thrive on it. You know, to me, any performance is such a gift because every shower leading up to it is epic. Because you're alone in there, and I just, like, something inside me dreams about the moment it'll finally happen. And you get ideas, and same kind of with writing. You're just always creating it. And I guess that, you know, I walked onto a stand-up comedy stage when I was 18 years old and walked off knowing that would be part of my life, no matter how it happened. A year and a half later, I was on the road pretty much full time, traveling around. By the way, my son is 19. I was 19 then, and he's in Nashville this week because he's a musician. And he's hitting the clubs and getting on as many stages as he can, and he wants to move there. And he's living my same life 30 years later, man. Friggin' weird.
So he's going to be a copywriter eventually.
Yeah, have to reinvent himself at 30.
Exactly.
And he gets started being broke. But anyway, it's just, part of me, and I was able to pursue it and do it for a long time until I burned out. And I never take an audience for granted. It's incredible. I'm glad we're in a horseshoe today.
It's funny. Kevin's the person that asked me, I guess about 5 years ago, he comes up to me, he goes, why the fuck would anybody want to be an umpire? That's what you said. And it was like, I don't know. I need to think about this. Just like if you said, you know, why would you want to be a comedian and then end up what you're doing? And I worked it into my business because it's about customer service and fulfillment and not getting the glory. I mean, only getting, they only know I'm on the field when I fuck up. But if I umpire a perfect game, at the end of the game, I get nice game ump, like a customer service rep on the phone. Mm-hmm. So and you also made me think about the focus that it takes to walk out of your life, and you'd have to do this now because you've done some comedy in your more recent years. Right. When I go umpire a game, it usually is like 4:00 in the afternoon. It's a high school game. I have to put everything out of my mind to go behind the plate and call 200 pitches, getting them all right.
Yeah.
Chris came to one once. It was interesting because he was in the crowd, and it made me think about work. And I had to hyper focus. And then when I got back to my desk, this was like I've been umpiring for 30 years. But when I got back to my desk after I did a game, I was so much more focused on my work. For some reason, that's how it worked for me anyway.
Yeah.
How did that work for you when you went out doing comedy? Because you've worked a lot of your comedy into your emails and all of that. So you've definitely blended it. But I'm wondering.
For sure. Well, one thing is, I think that's the thing I said about the two-way conversation from one side. It definitely gave me an advantage in that because I was holding those and barring getting heckled and things like that, for the most part, you do get that live interaction and that feedback, and that's invaluable.
I only get heckled.
You heckle yourself.
I heckle myself. Yeah, I don't need to do that when I'm umpiring. No.
That's bullshit. I'm at strike.
That's good. He's his own best audience.
Kill me. But quickly, I did go back. I'd been away 12 years, copywriting, running a business, and I hadn't thought much about comedy other than running some parallels to it in lessons and things. And I'm with my friend Billy, who I mentioned. He says to me, hey, I'm going to be in St. Pete. I'm playing the Mahaffey Theater. It's 2,000-seat theater. He says, why don't you open for me? I guess, oh, man. I go, well, that's nice, but no way. I go, I haven't been on stage in 12 years. I'm a totally different person. I can't. He goes, so what? He goes, do a couple sets, knock the rust off. It'll be fun. And I said no, and it meant no because I said, man, I'm just too busy. There's no way I could make time for that. And then a week later, it was kind of eating at me, and I thought, what is the point of having your own business if you can't do something like that? And so I called him back and said, if the offer's still good, I'll do it. He goes, great. And then I realized I had 6 weeks to write 30 new minutes that I was going to perform in front of 2,000 people, which is the biggest audience I'll have ever performed.
That's like 8 weeks to write a quantum physics paper. This is like deja vu for Perry. Yeah. And you said yes.
I said yes. I had to do it. And then, like an idiot, I went on Facebook and announced that I was taking on this challenge.
Right.
And then my friends started saying, hey, I saw your video. I just bought a ticket. I'm going to be there. Paris was the first one. I'm like, oh my God, no, this is real. Like I was just kind of goofing around and no. And so it got a little intense. But so what I did was I realized I have to approach this like I would a sales letter. I have to think about, when I was a comic, I was lazy and the only benefit I had was being on stage every night. So if I had an idea, this is how comics write jokes. They get an idea, they jot some version of it down, then they go back to playing video games, and then they go on stage that night and they hope it comes out something like a joke, and based on that they keep iterating because you kind of got nothing else to do. You're going to be doing 10 shows over the next 2 weeks, and so don't kill yourself trying to get it perfect. Work it out, right? But I had to write jokes, a lot of jokes, and go through them as quickly as I could. So and the only club I could get on whenever they were open was called Coconuts on the beach, and 88 people packed, but normally 6 to 12 people in the crowd, and sometimes only other comics. And so I'm having to work out jokes for 2,000 people in front of 8 lost tourists. But I learned a lot about structure, and some of that stuff in the meaning, particularly the negotiable thing. One thing by watching other comics I really realized was there's a thing I call it punch counter punch, which is the idea, and this is most of financial is about this. It's like I know how you think about, because we know about entering the conversation, but then it's like I want to enter the conversation, but then I'm going to ask you to consider an alternative point of view. And so what will give me the credence with you for me to maybe have you agree with me at the end of this? The first thing you have to do is establish authority on the topic. And the second thing you have to do is empathize with their current point of view, meet them there. Again, that's like that judo thing. And then you have to say, well, now that we both kind of see eye to eye on where this is, but you know what I've been thinking about? Hear me out, right?
Yeah.
So that's a lot of comedy does that, punch, counter punch. Punchline to get him to laugh, to go, we all agree, and then counter punch, but wait a minute. So a little shocking, a little off-putting. You can lose half the crowd, but if they come with you, that's like heroic status. You just got me to rethink something I thought I knew how I thought about. And now I'm laughing about my new way of thinking about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, tougher to lose half a crowd of 8, but it's still, but it's worth the risk.
You feel it more. That's
you feel
for sure.
it, right? But no, but I think it's worth the risk. It's worth the risk whenever you write. You're gonna. Haters gonna hate, so love them,
Yeah.
Hey, don't forget your goodies. Head over to copychief.com/copychiefradio to get some great free stuff to help you put the things you hear on the show into action for your business. Copychief.com/CCR.